WV Uncommon Place. This podcast is a variety podcast that houses numerous series to cover mental health, empowerment, podcast framework, and various intimate theories to get to know the hosts, along with occasional movies reviews and dives in pop culture with our event podcast episode. The Uncommon Place digs into bringing guests on that stories don't fit the mold and are very different. WV stands for the great state of West Virginia, and every quarter we cover something in West Virginia. Stacey and myself, JR, are your hosts, so please come along for this venture to Uncommon Place.
Howdy, everybody. It's me, JR. I am back. We all know the little struggle that I had going on with my heart. Heart's back in decent shape, but we are chronicalizing West Virginia. And when we talk about West Virginia, the one thing that comes to mind is country roads and then coal. Coal is the heart, the spirit. It's everything that you think of. You think of coal mining, you think of moon pies, you think of RC soda, you think about Hatfield and McCoy, you think about a lot of things in the southern part of the state. You think of counties like Boone, Logan. And when I say Logan County is one of the richest counties. It's basically built on coal, lives on coal, and was coal. And today, I have a special guest with me. I have an acclaimed author with me. Her name is Isabella Reddy, and she has a story that she wants to talk about. And her story intertwines history and fiction. And when you do that, that takes a lot of research. That makes you a civil servant to the area that you're going to. It makes you part of that community, and it hardens you, softens you. It does a gamut of emotions. So, without further ado, for me, I'm going to pass it along to Isabel, and she's going to tell us one thing that we need to know first. And this is very important. Before you start telling us your story, can you please tell us something that a grandparent passed along to you, and it'll tie into what we're going into later?
That one of my grandparents passed to me?
Yeah, something that they passed along to you.
Oh, it doesn't have to be a grandparent, right? Because I really didn't know my
Okay,
grandparents.
yeah, well, just someone that's not your parent.
Okay, I will go with my aunt, who was born in 1917, so she was old enough to maybe be a grandparent. And it dovetails with my novel because she used to say, you have to walk a mile in someone else's moccasins before you know what they're experiencing.
Okay, okay. Now, did you notice something? Your smile changed a little bit when you started talking about your aunt, right? So, audience, anyone that watches the video, the people that listen to the audio, you won't get this expression, but I want you to know something. You can tell that this lady loves history because when she spoke about her aunt, her face lit up in a way that I didn't see in the 20 minutes me and her have known each other. Now, I would thank you for that. And that part right there made you personable to the audience. And I wanted to do that because that's a human moment. Because we always get into autonomy when we start talking about things, you know? So I just wanted that there. Now, please tell us why you're here today and tell us what made you want to talk about the disaster and then to make fiction.
Yes, well, I have written a novel called That You Remember, and it is loosely based on the February 26, 1972 Buffalo Creek disaster in, as you said, Logan County, West Virginia. Why I picked up on this story about a long time ago, 2 decades ago, the responsible coal company was Pittston. And I knew that my father had worked for Pittston. I didn't know when he resigned, but I do now. And he resigned 6 years before the disaster in Buffalo Creek. And he resigned 4 years before Pittston Coal even acquired Buffalo Mining as a subsidiary. Lo and behold, when my father passed, the trustee representative, without telling me, sent me all of my father's desk diaries. So they landed on my doorstep, a giant box. So here I am. I knew about the Buffalo Creek disaster, I knew about the Pittston, and now I have primary documents, as they're called in research, of my father's every place he went, how much he spent, all of what you would write in a business log, daily business log. So I had the idea, but what really cinched it for me was hearing a poem on the internet, actually, just Googling Buffalo Creek disaster, read by a survivor of the disaster. And when I heard and saw her face and heard her words, that's what really got into my heart. And I wanted to write the book, basically prompted by her and what she said. She said, she repeated, I can't remember that night. I can't remember the dogs in the mud. And then at the end it says, I can't forget. So I wrote it. I wrote it for her and for the people in that region.
Okay, and I thank you for that because it's a part of Appalachia that, you know, I'm not saying that anybody tries to cover it up, but people try to kind of brush it under the rug, not to forget it, not to take away from it, but not to, they don't reinforce it. That'll be the educated thing there. Now, you're in these communities, and the longer and longer you're in these communities, you see the disconnect from America. You see why people say that when you come to West Virginia as a whole, it's its own place. What was your first moment of noticing that you were no longer a part? I mean, I know we're part of West Virginia is part of the United States, but when did you realize like that you were going back in time?
Well, driving there, parts of it are intensely rural, and the only vehicles I passed were gigantic coal trucks, huge, and sometimes the cliffs. We were on sheer rock walls and drop offs, and I'm passing these coal trucks, and there's no cell signal. I actually bought and brought a satellite thing to be able to
Oh,
say I'm okay or I'm SOS, right? And then you would get to this teeny little incorporated village, and there'll be a miner's market with no bathroom, by the way, and I had no cell signal. Yeah, and sometimes the poverty, it hits you right in the head. You just can't believe you believe it. Yeah.
yeah. And what I would like to do by design, um, coal trucks, to explain this to people, there's two variations that you see. There's one that's built with a bed on the back of it that is almost like a tractor trailer. And then another coal truck that you see is like a dump truck. The one that I see the most in that southern area, and you could tell me which one you see, the one that has the tractor trailer type build to it with the dump truck on the bed that's a dump bed for coal. That's a dangerous one that I seen. Like, I don't know if you were in West Virginia in the wintertime, but always I thought my driving skill got very great because or very well because I had to dodge those things coming down the mountain, especially around Bolt Mountain, and around Man and around Route 10. Now you meet the people, you start in doing your research. You see how um these people kind of like they're kind of like clansmen to a degree. Like, they all evolve around each other and they all live for the coal. How did it make you feel to see like actual people living, breathing, and dying from a mineral from the ground? And the reason I'm asking you this is because obviously with your story and with the slurry and the stuff that comes in, which I'll get you to explain to everybody what slurry is if you don't mind. Like, these people literally, that's all they know is just coal. So, like, what was it like to you when you were talking to these people and knowing that they still had to live with the repercussions and all that stuff? How did that make you feel?
Um, well, I found the people that I met, and I was an outsider. I wasn't from West Virginia, and by and large, people are very bonded to their home, their community. I would ask this one woman, "Well, tell me what you know." I knew she said, "Well, I wasn't from Logan County. I'm from a different county." I said, "You're still from West Virginia, right?" Yeah, and she married somebody who was a survivor and lost family. I'm not sure where I'm going with your question because, I found people very sophisticated. I found people, educated in a, very just sort of like equals. And they very much, by and large, wanted to tell their story. And in one in particular, wasn't even surprised that I was coming there. That region has gotten a lot of attention really since the 1960s with Kennedy. So she wasn't even surprised that I was coming there and I was writing a book. Very willing, very open the door, come in. I went in their homes. I met people at the library. I went to church with one of my main contacts. They wanted to tell their story. I think, as you say, they're bonded to coal. Coal has been the source of income, and coal goes back in history, and their loved ones worked in coal mines. And they also want to say, this happened, this needs to be prevented. What I will add about my novel that you remember is that it wasn't, grown men by and large who elected to be a miner, who were paid to be a miner, who died in a coal mine. This is a coal mining disaster, which happened to cause a flood that killed 125 innocent people in their homes. Mostly women and children and some babies died in this disaster.
And that's harsh. Harsh.
Yeah.
Now, inside your novel, you have the coal industry workers, executives, and the stuff that you have from your father, to kind of build a background there.
Mhm.
Where did you like, was there ever like a point that you kind of like got like a writer's block or kind of like frozen in like that disaster, knowing like that those innocent people just got killed? Uh, like, was it something there that kind of like froze you, like a inhuman moment, maybe thinking about how all this happened and how the carelessness of the company, um, the carelessness of actually the county for not having safeguards up for this type of stuff? Did any of that like kind of just stop you from writing for a minute and like, wow, how can other humans be like this to other humans?
Well, my novel, I gave 10 years of research. I've been in coal mines too, one in Beckley, West Virginia, and one in Wales. I did extensive research. I looked at all of the court documents, the depositions from the Pittston Coal as part of the lawsuit that Gerald Stern won for the survivors, a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against Pittston. So no, I can see what you're saying, and it is traumatic and it does live in your head. That's true, but I felt a mission to tell the story and to weave in the some true events. For instance, the miracle baby, Carrie Albright, who was written up in the Reader's Digest multiple years ago, and they've given him a highway now, and there's a mural because Carrie Albright at 9 months old was thrown by his mother away. She was being pulled away by the tidal wave. He was thrown in the mud and he survived and was airlifted out, and he is a very successful man in New York City now. So I felt it was a story that needed to be told, and that's what urged me on.
Okay. Now, get inside your novel
Hmm.
that you remember. You have a character, Sarah, correct?
Hmm.
And Sarah wants to escape her circumstances, but she also wants to protect her home. And that aspect in your book is an amazing thing, as far as I told you, as far as I got into it, because that generally is expressive of what the West Virginians, what we're like, how our heart is made. And I thank you for capturing that because a lot of people think that we're just toothless B&J playing people. Um, and with her wanting to do this, how much of her conflict came directly from real people you spoke with? Like the elements that you draw to make her an amazing character. How how did you pull that out of conversations you had with people?
Well, I will tell you, I love that question. You've helped me think more deeply about Sarah. Sarah was a hero. we have to have a hero in a story, and heroes don't always win. But Sarah, from the very beginning, was spunky, perky, and could stand up to a coal operator who she met fishing, who was, she was finding out, oh my gosh, you're a coal operator. Because at that time in the 70s, there was a great animosity because the unions were very strong, United Mine Workers Association, and literally many people told me restaurants would clear out if a coal operator walked in, which I depicted in my novel. And she had the gumption to speak up to him and sort of to begin to see him from her own eyes, not from the eyes of her family. She's fiction, but I think she's realistic. And I did check that out with people that lived there. So I did get confirmation that this could happen, that someone could have a love affair with a coal operator, but it was very taboo, and you better keep it quiet because back then there was, as I say, the unions were strong. There were wildcat strikes all the time in the 70s over anything, over new tires or books in school. The miners would just walk off. So
now let me ask you this. We're going to spin it around. Now, what elements of Sarah are from you?
Are from me?
Yes.
That's good. That's good. I love a hero. And I think I would hope that I am somebody who can speak up, who would speak up. And I think I am. I'm an advocate for the underdog. And I've been a teacher and special ed teacher, and it's kind of that I want to help every single child. So Sarah spoke up in the to Leon Underwood in the general store, which was depicted as this place where people hang out, people talk, and everyone goes there. And she spoke up for the woman who wrote a letter to the governor, and that really happened in real life, and I put that in my book. So, and I don't want to do spoiler alerts, but Sarah was an emotional girl. She heard about what happened in Aberfan, Wales, where the slurry, which it was depicted in The Crown, where the big gob pile slid and smothered and crushed a school full of children in 1966. And when she heard that, her fires were even more motivated. We have to do something. We have to save this community.
Okay. Now, one thing that we talked about, in what is depicted, obviously there's pain in this story. Pride and identity tie the place together inside that pain. Why do you think people hold so tightly to communities that hurt them?
Well, if you go to my website, which is thatyouremember.com, I have podcasts and Q&As, and I also have articles I've published. And I published an article called Memory and Hope, Legacies of a Coal Mining Disaster. And in that article, I talked about this. Like when I go to these memorial events, and I've been to many of them, starting from the 40th, and I've been to the 50th, and I was just a speaker now at the 54th. There's not a bad word said about the coal industry. And how is that? People are bonded to their families, their kinship, their blood, their history, their loved ones, their church, all of those were wiped out, but they rebuilt. Yeah, there's a lot of pride in coal mining. And I think very quickly, what happened after the Buffalo Creek disaster was the coal company responsible, which was Pittston, came in, and the spokesperson or their lawyer said, this was an act of God. Now, I'll tell you, many people in these regions, as you probably know, are very religious. And I think that really was like the coal company saying, we're trying to deflect blame here, because they knew it was not God. And they knew it was not their mountains that they loved. This was egregiously out of compliance, slurry lagoons full of this. The coal way out of compliance and broke free and made this tidal wave of destruction.
Agreed on that one. It's them doing a projection, and that projection using God is not a good thing there. Now, you finish writing your book, you get your book published, and you're looking at it at your ISBN inside the book, you're getting it put in libraries and different things like that. What is the lasting effect that you want this book to have on people?
Another great question. Thank you. That would be Sarah, my hero, the hero, that she spoke up. She spoke up for the underdog. She tried to speak up to the head, the head of this company. You have to do something about these dams. We're living in a perilous situation. Now, we all love to root for the winning team, but heroes don't always win. And this did end in a disaster. Too many of the horses had left the gate.
Very true.
But it's worth speaking up. And what comes to mind is Aaron Brockovich. What comes to mind is Dark Waters, when they discovered what was happening. It's in a way, it's never too late, because if we can prevent it in the future, then that's something good.
It is. That Dark Waters is actually another story based on where I live now. I was telling you about. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, we didn't get to talk about that one, but yeah. So going further in life, because knowing you've already got your book out there, and one thing I want to do real quick, and this is for any author, and this is for anybody that it's one thing that we have lost in our library system. If you get a chance, go to your state capital. And if you purchase this book, Isabel, could you tell us where they can purchase the book directly from you?
Oh, well, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, you can request it at your local bookstore or library, or go to the publisher, Belle Isle Books. And that is an imprint of Brandy Lane Publishing out of Richmond, Virginia.
Okay, awesome. Now, when you do that, and if you buy the book and you want to get it for your library, go to your state capital, give them the ISBN for that book, and your state capital. Now, at least I know in West Virginia they still do this. They will get a book for every county in the state with you purchasing that one book, and they have that ISBN, and that way that book will be immortalized in places that other people, may not get it or may not have a chance to even know about it. It'll be immortalized. It'll be in their county. So always remember that, because it's something we learned back in school, and a lot of people have forgotten about that. That's one great thing that you can do for an author, and you can immortalize an amazing piece of work like this. Now,
Thank you.
we got one more personal question I'd like to ask you real quick. If you were asked tomorrow to go in front of the House of Delegates in West Virginia and to talk about everything that you've encompassed in your book, what would be the theme and what would be the target of your conversation with the delegates in West Virginia?
Yeah, what I would say is that from the first time I stepped on the soil of Logan County and went into the house and spoke to survivors, palpable pain, ready tears, at the podium, grown men crying. And then, we can read about disasters, tsunamis and everything. We turn the page and we go on, but the long-standing effects of this. And I want to add that I detached the story. So I say it's loosely based on the Buffalo Creek disaster. I decided to set it in a very close neighboring coal area, very similar in Kentucky. And I changed the year a little bit because of protecting privacy, because of the very real trauma that really is still very apparent. And I didn't want to sort of steal their story or feel like I could tell their story. I couldn't, but I could tell that loosely based that this happened and we need to keep it from happening in the future.
Okay. And I like that. And I do like that you did differentiate there and keep these people's identities and different things anonymous. They definitely appreciate that, but we appreciate the part of the heart and soul that you put into it. So let me do this real quick. So audience, one thing I would like you to digest or consume out of this episode is that when responsibility is given to a corporation. A corporation has to have accountability inside that responsibility. And 9 times out of 10, from past, which makes history, which makes a lesson that we have to learn from, which this is a harsh lesson, accountability is not always taken care of. A responsibility is something that people will make legal and make it look good, but the accountability when something bad happens, that's when you see if the company's real or if they're not. And that's when you see if there's a human entity to the company or if it's just big numbers and it's someone crunching. It's someone just moving, some type of progress for monetary gain for someone else. And as I hear and I see a lot in West Virginia, the outsiders making money off of us. And in this case, and in all kinds of cases inside of coal, it's always different things that happen and that take away from the community. But the one thing that brought the community back together was the rebuilding process. And inside this story, this amazing character, Sarah, the tenacity and whom she is and whom you've created, Isabella, is something that represents the human, the human spirit, intuition. Like what I want to say, and not taking up too much more time, is that you made a character that is so personable that people can relate. You didn't make a character that had so much fiction or had anything to it that a person couldn't relate to it. She could be someone's aunt, she could be someone's sister, she could be someone's wife, mother. She could be any and everything to someone, and she is that to someone. So that's one thing I want to say personally. Thank you to you for, and I want to thank you for having the heart, soul, and mind to go beyond yourself to write something that is transcending. Because we can all write anything, but when you write something that transcends, it breaks barriers and it moves around and it surfaces for a community or for communities. That is powerful. So I commend you for that.
Thank you.
So the last thing I'd like you to do, if you don't mind, is I would like you to leave people with this one message. I want you to take us to a bookstore, proverbially, with the That You Remember book. I'm looking at it in Charleston. There's a place, I don't know if you ever had to go to Taylor Books, but there's a place downtown that's a bookstore that's just right there. If I see that book right there in the front, and I'm walking down Capitol Street with you right then and there, and we see that book, what is the first thing you're telling me about that book before I go in that store?
You have to read that book. It's loosely based on the Buffalo Creek disaster, and it's a story that needs to be told, and it happened in West Virginia. And has happened many places across the globe. They talk about the Dan River in North Carolina, or just many, egregious acts. And when we're talking about coal companies being responsible, we have to have laws that have teeth. Otherwise, they disobey the laws. Yeah, so we have to have legislation, really.
And I agree with that. And hopefully we can have an architect to keep that going and get things straight. So on that note, I am JR, and this is our author, Isabella Reddy. She has been on the show with us today. And the great thing that you will find out about a podcast after the show is over with and done, the after podcast effect, which would be the show notes. That's where you'll be able to find where you can meet and greet her across the internet, and how you can get intertwined into her ecosystem so you can learn more about the author. And you can, if you would like to schedule her to be on a show or to be, to even have her come talk about her book, maybe there are ways and means to get in touch with her through that information that maybe didn't discuss on the show. So on that note, I want to tell everybody, good morning, good evening, and good night.
Yeah. And go to thatyouremember.com. And thank you for your interest very much.
All right. And here goes that outro, everybody.
Please follow WV Uncommonplace on Instagram, Tumblr, Twitter, TikTok, where we have some great content, Facebook, LinkedIn. Hit up the merch store at onecommonplace.square.site. Join the email list from the website,
and rate, subscribe, and give feedback from your favorite podcatcher. And lastly, thanks for listening and tune into the next episode.